Welcome to Indian Trail Zoo Safari 2022. The first stop on our safari takes us to the African Savannah. African Savannah is home to many different animals. Here we have our guide through our safari today, Mrs. Wright. We're looking for different types of trees in the savannah and lots of different animals. Here we see an elephant. Here we see an ostrich and a snake, different animals that live in the savannah. The savannah is known for having two main seasons, the dry season and the wet season. The temperatures don't change much, but you can guess that there's a lot more rain in the wet season than there is in the dry. Here are some more animals that we see, including a weaver bird. We see over here some of our big cats, the king, the lion, also a cheetah, the fastest land animal, and a rhinoceros. As we move on, we also see a hyena, and I believe that's another hyena at the end. We close in on some of the other animals that we can find in the savannah. Lots of herbivores live in the savannah because of the tall grasses, which also brings around those big cats that love to eat those herbivores, our carnivore animals. A little bit ago we saw some zebras. Here we see a giraffe. And as we go along, we see more of those animals, including another lion and a kingfisher. Moving along, here's another one of our special guides, our musical guide through our savannah, Mr. Renardo on the drums. And with that, we're going to find our way moving towards the ocean. As we leave the savannah and head towards the ocean, we take a little stop on the beach and listen to the waves before preparing to dive deep into a reef. There we go, under the water. As we look around underwater, we find a reef full of corals that have grown from little polyps. Some of our work on our walls. We also run into some dolphins and seahorses and crabs. Here we see some more of our first and third graders' works, and some second graders that taught us about sharks. Lots of different sharks live in the ocean. Some live by reefs, some live in cold areas. As we move down through the reefs, we find ourselves with sand dollars and sea stars. Here we learn all about the different types of things that happen in the ocean, and even take a little peek into an aquarium for ourselves today. These things on the board right here that we're just looking at were made by our 4th grade students. And here we see some more of the animals that we find under the ocean, including crabs and sharks and seahorses and fish. Here's some more of our guides. There's Mrs. Skrabansky in the 4th grade hall and Mrs. Darby as we move through the ocean and continue swimming. Hello, little fish. How are you? As we swim deeper down, we find ourselves into the midnight zone where we'll see lots of different jellyfish. We have a friendly little octopus over here to say hello to us, and on the other wall, a squid with its special sense receptors. We'll also see large animals around that the 4th graders created and telling us about their sense receptors, like the golden jellyfish there on the wall and a shark over here on the wall. All have special receptors to help them to see things and hear things and sense things underwater. There's another one of our guides, Miss Farrell. Hello, as we move through the ocean. We come up a little bit towards the top of the water here. We find some more of our fish and sharks. There's some dolphins back there. Continue on with all of this wonderful work done by all of our grade levels. Here the sun is setting over the ocean as we move through and towards our next ecosystem. Not before we find some more of our sand dollars and sea stars. There's a little eel peeking out from our reef here as we're getting towards the end of the 4th grade hall. Lots of seaweed growing and coral. And here we leave the ocean and prepare to find ourselves in the wetlands. As we leave our ocean, we find ourselves in the wetlands. Wetlands are areas where water meets land. Wetlands are very important for filtering out pollutants and stuff that happens in our waters. Lots of the plants that are there are able to suck that pollutants right out of the water. We find lots of very important animals, and we know we have a healthy wetland when we see these animals, like our Canadian geese and our turtles, our ducks and our fish. We have some frogs down there, butterflies and dragonflies. Here's one of our guides, Mrs. Stichter, hanging out with all those wonderful blue heron that our 1st graders created along with these other animals. We went on a tour this year, on a virtual tour to some wetlands in Illinois and learned all about the important animals and the importance of that wetland to filter our water. Just a fraction of our water is drinkable on the planet, and that fraction of water is cleaned in the wetlands, where we find more of those fantastic animals like our frog the 2nd graders created for the hallway, and this huge alligator made by Mrs. Hole. Lots of those plants that grow there are very important. There are also carnivorous plants like these pitcher plants we see here on the wall. And we find some alligators again created by our first graders. And down there we see a catfish. And oh, there's Mrs. Rudovsky, another one of our guides. Here are some beavers, and there's a wonderful little duck-billed platypus that uses electrolocation to find its food and keep itself safe. As we leave our wetlands, we're heading towards our next very chilly ecosystem. Here for our next stop, we're heading to the North Pole, where we're going to visit the Arctic region, the polar region near our North Pole. We find lots of different animals that are equipped and adapted to this area. Our seals, which are full of blubber. We have Arctic terns, which are white in color and live up there. We have lots of other animals we can find here. There's lots of snow in the Arctic region because it is so cold. And here's a couple of our guides of the Arctic region, Mrs. Rios and Miss Disher. There are some more of our polar bears and snowflakes, as it snows a lot in the North Pole and in the polar regions. A family of polar bears will help guide us through this area as we continue on, looking at all these wonderful little animals our second graders created. Here we see a fourth grade project describing the Arctic region, and some more of our second grade polar bears. In a second here, we're going to take a turn around the corner. There's some third grade work and our first graders' beautiful creations about the animals that live in the Arctic tundra and in the polar region in the South Pole as well. Here we see some of our fourth grade sense receptors. There's our polar bear. And over here we see some beautiful butterflies and poppies, the Arctic poppies and Arctic blue butterflies. We realize there are 20 different species of butterflies that are in the Arctic or polar region. And here are some of our curators helping us design this part of our safari or our museum. Continuing on with those beautiful pink pictures that they painted, colored. Moving on around the corner here again, we're going to see some more of our amazing first grade work before moving on to see some more animals from our North Pole or our Arctic region. On this side here we see some of work from Miss Alio's class, and I believe in a second here we'll say hello to another one of our guides, Mrs. Alio. There she is. And continuing on here, we see some animals from Mrs. Webster's class. They did a wonderful job with the Arctic hares and caribou and walruses. We have a big polar bear. It shows polar bears can be up to 8 feet. This one is only 6 feet tall, but they can be much larger. On the other side, we see some musk oxen and an orca, also known as a killer whale, along with our walruses. Some beautiful snowflakes for our cold region here. There's some of our Arctic guides. And some little baby animals here too outside of Mrs. Pfeiffer's room. Keep an eye out for those Arctic facts as you move through here, and we're now going to travel out of the Arctic region and move a little bit further south. South of the equator is where an animal called the penguins live. Here we learn there are 17 different species of penguins that live south of the equator. One of those penguins, the Galapagos penguin, lives right near the equator. Every other species lives in the south region. Most of them actually living in Antarctica. Here we see our blue penguin, also known as the little penguin, that is found in Australia and New Zealand. After taking that cold trip down to Antarctica, we are now back in the savannah where we see some jackals. Lots of different grass live in the savannah. It's so well known for its tall grasses. That's why so many herbivores live there, like the family of zebras we have right here, having a quick meal before the sun sets. We also just saw a stork on the wall. Here's some more of those African trees and different types of grasses we find in Africa. We're going to head down a little bit out of the savannah and into the jungle or the rainforest. Third grade chose to do the rainforest this year, and you'll see the rainforest has lots of different growth. Different plants grow at different heights throughout the rainforest. It grows so well because of all of the rain it gets. The rainforests are mostly found near the equator, where we find the warmest weather. That warm weather allows for lots of rain, which lots of rain allows for lots of growth, and these plants need that. Turn around. Behind us we see our elephant, wonderful animals from the savannah that also will find its way into the rainforest. We also find lots of other animals. There's a sloth there. There's a poison dart frog, another poison dart frog over here from our fourth graders. There's a jewel beetle. It's able to sense fire from miles away. There's some little creatures that we will find, like tigers and frogs. There's a gorilla. We see the understory, the canopy, and the emergent layer of our rainforest. Each of those holds different animals and different plants and plays an important part in allowing that rainforest to thrive. We see some snakes here as well that we'll find in our rainforest. And here's one of our monkeys. Lots of different types of apes and monkeys live in the rainforests. Here we see some of our third grade work. They worked on different types of things, learning about the rainforest, including the different levels, the different animals that are there. Mrs. J's class created these wonderful dioramas of the rainforest for us as well to enjoy. You see, remember lots of different parts. The rivers, the rainforests generally have some sort of water in them, of course, to create that ability to create more and more rain. The Amazon rainforest, the Congo rainforest, the Southeast Asian rainforests all have lots of water and rivers. There's some frogs, there's some blue morpho butterflies. As we move down the hall here, we see some more of the animals. Here on the other side of the gym doors, we find ourselves at a cocoa tree and the life of that cocoa tree that Mrs. Wanderson's class learned about and created for us. Speaking of Mrs. Wanderson, here she is with Mrs. Moss. Two more of our guides that also helped us to raise money for the World Wildlife Fund this year. Here's some more of our third grade work on the wall, showing us many of the different things. Oh, and we just saw Mr. Jones as well, another one of our guides. Throughout this year, our grade levels 1 through 4 have learned a lot about the different types of ecosystems, the animals that live there, and what we have shown you here today is all those wonderful things that they have worked very hard to learn about and share with themselves and with us, and to teach so many other people about. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our safari, and we will see you next year. Say goodbye to everybody, Mrs. Wright.